Let me tell you about a group of students, oh so bold. Holly, Courtney with a K, Courtney with a C. Let the story unfold. Gabby and Brian join the crew, and Angelica too. Heart strong and true, they face the warrior exam, challenge to endure with determination in their souls. They were ready for short, late nights of study. Notes filled the air, they knew their dreams were waiting, their futures laid bare. They took on the test, gave it all that they got. In the face of challenges, they never forgot the strength inside each one. They pushed through with might. In the end, they rose above, shining so bright.
The first time I've seen you without a glorious background.
I know, what's going on?
This is my Google Meets. It's like, this is how I do my podcasts.
You do a podcast?
What podcast do
Yeah.
you have?
It's called Salida Style. I interviewed Miss Universe. I interview like all these fashionistas and everything.
You're wearing your Miss Universe outfit? How did you become Miss Universe?
Oh, okay, yeah. So I started out competing locally. So I was Miss Paulsbo, which is
So the first question, how are we feeling about the warrior exam?
Does anyone
Pretty
want to
good.
like do the writing, by the way, before we
I
get
can-
too far
Just
into
let
this?
you right?
You're down.
I got it open. I'll take the notes right in our class. We'll just get it done and zoom it off.
You guys are awesome.
It's said only like 250 words, yeah, so it's like get a sentence from everyone in your state.
Yep.
I just checked out the rubric too, and it really just looks like the only things that we are being graded on is having unconditional positive regard, attentive behaviors, paraphrasing, open-ended questions. I think as the listener, not putting your insights, opinions, or utilizing saving behaviors. And then as the person who's answering, you're being graded on intellectual understanding, references to readings, personal philosophy, and holding the context of helping professions while demonstrating understanding. So
And I watched his video, and he said that if we feel like we absolutely blew it, like horribly, like just nerves got to us, that we can do like a write-up afterwards.
Thank God.
If like for whatever reason we just like draw blank and like our nerves get to us, he's like, you can write up an explanation, you will not fail this warrior exam. And I was like,
nice.
He's so easy to talk to. Don't
He
psych
is.
yourselves out, guys. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm not worried about this one.
Yeah, no, I feel like it's almost easier to, and he'll coax stuff out of you. Like he's not gonna like leave you hanging. I have a feeling he's gonna like feed us some breadcrumbs, if we're struggling.
I think if we answer with our own personal ideas, I think we're settled. We're good. We're golden.
Yep.
and then the questioner also has to have like open-ended questions to kind of like draw out from the person that's doing the answering for the exam.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gabby, did you cut your hair?
I did.
It's so cute.
Thank you. I just cut it this today, and I actually got an undercut.
Wow.
I love it.
Nice.
That's fancy.
So
Very
it was
fancy.
spring, and it was slightly manic decision, but I was like, cut off all my hair, please.
Yes, no, I love that for you. I've had short curly hair and it never worked for me. So I'm like absolutely terrified to ever try again. But it looks so good.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
These questions are very multifaceted. What does it mean to be white? How does one develop a non-racist white identity? As counselors, what specific steps can we take to reduce prejudice or to become non-racist or even anti-racist? White is a social construct like race and gender. Non-racist is not engaging in racism. Anti-racist is taking steps against racism in its systemic form. What are the steps you can take to reduce prejudice? Is noticing your own bias.
Have you looked at any of the new stuff that's going on here?
What?
I also think the process of unlearning biases that we've been taught is like a part of the process of cultivating a non-racist white identity.
That would be kind of anti-racist.
Yeah.
Deprogramming your own biases.
I think like awareness of privilege is really important too, and being super just cognizant of where you might not understand someone else's perspective because you do come from a privileged place or vice versa, right?
Being able to connect with someone that is not like you.
Check yourself at the door.
Finding similarities rather than focusing on differences. Actively challenging biases. Educating ourselves on racial issues.
How would,
Advocating for social justice.
Brian, how would we actively challenge biases? Our own biases.
I would say by making it like a daily or lifelong sort of commitment. Yeah.
By noticing them and then consciously challenging that, saying, well, it's just my opinion. It doesn't mean that that's the way things are.
And I think acknowledging where you learned them from too, like the root of it is definitely a big factor because we can acknowledge that they're there. And sometimes I think getting to like one of the roots or multiple roots of it is like, okay, how do I take that and start my process of unlearning that bias?
Good job, you guys.
Also, like Brian was saying, and like, you know, finding similarities and commonality and such, I think it's also important that we amplify people's differences as well. And like, not in a way that makes anyone uncomfortable, of course, but just in a way that gives it applaud and recognition where needed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And holding space for those differences too. Broaching, kind of reaching across the table and acknowledging that we may have different experiences in life based on our racial identity or ethnic identity.
And I would love to learn more on that, right? Like that's a big one for us is how can we be, like Courtney was saying, just like never ending open for learning and expanding our minds with this whole situation and the people that we encounter on a daily basis.
And being willing to ask the question and hear the question and the answer. We got to be able to hear what they're saying.
I like the idea of acknowledging differences because I
Mhm.
always try to find the similarities rather than the differences. And I think sometimes that diminishes the importance of acknowledging what's different through broaching and saying, well, look here, we're different. Can we come together and be aware of that at the same time?
Yep. Willing to talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah, like people say, I don't see race. That's about the most racist thing you could say, in a way.
Yep.
It's like all lives matter in a sense, like,
Yeah, being colorblind is not acknowledging differences and being accepting and holding space for people whose experience really have impacted their life because of
Right.
the way that they've been treated based on their racial identity.
right,
You say, I don't see color, you're diminishing their experience.
Exactly.
right.
Well, and you're also like putting blinders on yourself.
Yep.
Which, how disrespectful is that? To
Yeah.
say, oh, I don't acknowledge you.
Yeah.
Like, my God, what a rude thing to say. Gosh.
Or it's going to be okay. Talk about passing the buck. No, you don't know what it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. We're saying, I know how you feel.
Yeah. I hear you. I
Yeah.
see you. Teach me.
Yeah.
I think limiting your self-disclosure when it comes to these places of vast differences with people is going to be really, really huge. Like giving a lot of space for them and their experiences.
Yep.
Mhm.
Particularly coming from a place of like, what is white, right? Like there's a lot of space that needs to be held, like what Gabby was saying.
Also, it's just self-disclosing your differences and your biases, if you can, acknowledge that and saying, like, I don't have your experience. I don't know what it must be like. Not pretending like, just because I'm a professional, I know everything.
And in one sentence, what does it mean to be white?
For me, I guess I would say it's like historically having a red carpet in society laid out for you.
Mine was privilege. No matter what color of skin you are, if you're light skinned, you're white. We have no idea of what it is to be dark skinned and to be afraid. Privilege. And it doesn't mean ethnicity.
Yeah. And it's also a social construct, like gender or race.
Good job, you guys. You feel good about that one?
Mhm.
Pretty good, yeah.
You guys did a good job.
And this is all being recorded, right? Is that what that little red thing
Yep.
means up there?
Yay!
Beautiful, because gosh, what an amazing outline notes thing we're creating right now. I love it.
Yeah.
It will only show up when you're speaking. It will only show, so it goes to everybody that's speaking, so it doesn't have like the whole view.
Are we ready to move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
What is one area of personal bias you uncovered in our conversation or religion? Reference a specific religion and give a concrete example from your life as well as academic context around this example. How would you work how would you work with this topic in human services?
The only religion that I have a bias against is white Christian nationalism, because I feel like it goes against religion in general, because it's more of it has a racial component, and it's like a white supremacy sort of rebranding, and it's a political movement, and it's pretty scary. So if somebody was like in that, I would not. It'd be hard to acknowledge that and have compassion for that.
You would be challenged.
Yeah. So I don't know how I would breach that or come across like it'd be very difficult because I'm just at odds with everything about that
Is
on
there a
every
way?
level.
Is there a way for you to remove yourself from the emotional side of it and maybe look on the, what's the word I want to use, like intellectual side, and maybe open yourself up to learning more about what's going on there from that person's perspective, and would maybe in like putting your mind in that mode, would that help you be able
Yeah,
to be more available for that individual?
that would be what I would have to do is just try and learn exactly what it is their values are and what they're thinking and how that affects their life. And it seems totally counterintuitive.
Maybe you would get converted. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It's a bad joke. Trying to make light.
Yeah.
I have kind of the similar, I guess, thing I like couldn't come up with. I don't really have any personal bias against any specific religion. With I guess the only one I could really come up with is like Satanism, and I don't fully. I just don't understand it, right? So there are sides of things that I've heard, but I haven't experienced it firsthand, so I don't know what's actually going on. So, but that one is one that like makes me sweat, and like I would be like probably almost scared of the individual that I was working with, right? And so I think that one would be hard if I had an emotion like fear that is associated with my bias. Like, I don't know what you do when that comes up, because I think it's another thing when it's like, okay, intellectually I don't like agree with your stance, but I can like set that aside. But what if it's something that like scares you?
Yeah.
Or like brings up this emotion of like super discomfort where like, how do you hide that? I'm one who wears everything on my face.
The
Do
only
you
way
think
to,
that fear comes from somewhere that was like that was learned, that was taught to you in terms of like that specific religion?
Potentially. I think also just like coming from the middle of nowhere where I come from, there's a lot of weird stuff that's practiced around me that like includes different animal sacrifice things and just stuff that I don't stuff that scares me because I'm a wuss. And like it doesn't mean that it's wrong. It doesn't mean that and that's where it's just like I would have to like really figure out how to like subdue my like maybe getting scared of something, right?
Definitely.
Or like if someone's a murderer, or like someone did something like really bad to a woman, and like I wonder if there's gonna be like this like underlying aspect of fear. And that's the one thing with this whole checking your bias thing that I'm like, oh, makes my pits sweat.
Hmm.
how do you interview a serial killer with unconditional positive regard?
Exactly. And I know we're not to that degree yet in these classes by any means,
Or like
but I know that we're ultimately headed to that place. And I want to keep it in mind.
Andrew said that in psychopathology, you said that it was like within a matter of months that he began practicing, he started hearing things about people sleeping with animals.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you how do you approach that? It's like illegal and immoral and inhuman.
Crossing all kinds of boundaries.
See, and that's the kind of Andrew that I want to have a class with. Mine was not that person. I would like to know more about that, that train wreck.
Right. Well,
Psychotherapy, the good one.
Mhm.
radical
one were-
acceptance.
See, and I think my bias I hold when I was young because I was born Catholic, and we would go to church every single Sunday, and all they would talk about is how much money they needed in the church. And there was no teaching. There was nothing like that. It was all we need, we need, we need. And that was my bias. And after having a conversation about Christianity and the person that I actually had a conversation with, I couldn't figure out why I would even care about that bias. But that was, I'm not going as you guys are good for getting the Satanism and the white Christian. There's some pretty scary ones out there, and I have to agree with Courtney with the K, because the fear of knowing that and the anxiety of thinking that we might be working with somebody that could be hurting a child, I might end up in jail. It's like you start thinking about that. I never thought about that till you guys started saying that. It's kind of crazy.
You'd want to be extra, extra diligent in trying to figure out underlying if this person is planning on hurting someone or hurting themselves, and then you would have to report that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you could ask questions like, are you planning on acting out these fantasies or something like that?
Right. Or are they the people that just want to tell me a story so they can see my reaction?
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks because ultimately we're in a place to figure out how to show up and help these people, right?
Exactly.
And that's where it's just like, what an interesting balance of life we're going to have to maintain here with this profession we're going into, guys.
Yeah.
And then when we did that about Adam Lanza, and he was talking about his psychiatrist and how she didn't see like he was trying to plan anything, but he wasn't even going to tell her about it, and so they came up to her and were like, how did you not know? How could you not do anything? So it's a slippery slope because you never know what somebody's thinking. You want to maintain and create a sense of trust like an interrogator would, so where they can tell you anything and they feel comfortable saying it, and they tell you their deepest, darkest secrets, and somehow you initiate and involve that trust with them so that you're on this level where I'm not going to judge you. You can tell me anything. And it's not up to you to judge. It's up to you to report if necessary. But you just really have to be a clean slate.
And being transparent in that conversation, like you just said, I have to report if I hear anything that you were going to tell me. I just want to let you know ahead of time, because if this is what's happening, this is what we have to do. And I think holding the tool belt close to my body, knowing that I can reach out to a Johan, that I can reach out to certain people and say, this is what I had a conversation about. How do I follow this? Right. So having your tool belt of understanding that you have the help, you're not alone sitting in that room by yourself with that person. You have that Drew that you can call. You have that Chris that you can call, and say, okay, I just had a situation and I just need some backing.
I think people want to talk. They want to admit, but they don't trust that they're not going to be judged.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to find that balance between, I'm not going to judge you, but I do have to be a moral reporting agency, but I want you to tell me exactly what you're feeling and thinking. So we don't want people to censor themselves. Almost trick them into or initiate that sense of trust that they can tell you anything.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is just reacting to what they're saying, how you react, how you respond. You know, you like, oh shit, really? You know, you don't do that, but
No.
that's where the unconditional positive regard comes in. It's how you respond
Mm-hmm.
to where they say, I'm thinking about killing my neighbor. Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I hear that. Tell me more.
Yeah, concealing the initial reaction on my face is I need to work on my poker face quite a bit.
Yeah.
'Cause anything kind of my eyes go wide and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's talk about it.
Do you have a plan?
Yeah, it's like, hey, like where are we in this thought process? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
It's about bringing it out of the person, eliciting their trust and radical acceptance. So how could you accept hearing that something insane is about to happen and then just approaching it with an even keel?
I think practice,
Radical
practice, practice, and sorry. I think practice, practice in front of a mirror is the key. Learning how to read your own face when you see that. When you have somebody share that intent conversation with you and you're like, you know, instead of tell me more, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's all recording, practice, practice, practice.
If you're
Well,
on
and
that level,
Oh, go for
sorry.
it, Ron.
I was going to say, if you're on that level with somebody, they're accepting what they're saying. And so you have to mirror that acceptance.
Yep.
Like, just because you're not judging them doesn't mean that you're saying it's okay. Doesn't mean that you agree with them, but you mirror that acceptance to where, oh, okay, so that's normal to you.
I also think like with creating a space for people to share, it's going to be hard to show a level of like interest or curiosity sometimes of like, hey, I really want to know more about this in a way that's not like judgmental or like wanting, or in a way that being inquisitive in a way that feels safe for them, even though internally we might be screaming.
Yep.
You know,
And
I would
knowing it,
definitely have a hard time, like, you know, there's a lot of pain in my life that I have associated with organized religion and Christianity because of the contradictions that happen between actions but wanting to love everybody. So if like I had somebody who came to me, you know, who was from a religious family who was pregnant and wanted an abortion, but like their family wasn't going to allow it, I would be like, tell me more about how you're feeling without me wanting to go attack your family.
Yeah.
You know, like it's really hard. Or, you know, somebody who is LGBTQIA and their family is wanting to kick them out or not love them in that way. And it's very different tone from like but it still gives me this feeling of like, ooh, I need to hold space for people whose religion is really important to them when it's not the case for me. And how do I do that in a inviting and non-judgmental way?
Yeah.
We definitely got a little off kilter there, didn't we, with that whole topic?
How can I understand
Great.
how this makes sense to this person? Like, what they're saying doesn't make any sense to me. So how can I get to the point where I can ask them a question to make it make sense to me so that I can see how it makes sense to them? And then you can understand how they can think these things.
And that's
Even
that
though it
like
makes no
amplifying the differences, right? And being like, cool, explain to me this. I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, just asking questions like, okay, how does that work? Or what do you mean by that? Or, you know, how did you come across this idea? Or how did you get to this point?
And then when you're able to ask that question, all of a sudden it turns into, well, my parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents, this and this and this and this. And then you really get to know that person. And then
Mhm.
maybe by the time it's over, you actually have some kind of an understanding with that person. That's what I'm looking for. is
Yeah.
the end result rather than, oh my God, you just shocked the holy hell out of me.
Mhm.
Let's see how you got to this first, you know?
Because they have to have a cognitive dissonance to where they don't realize what they're saying is insane.
Right.
It makes sense somewhere in there, and then I have to have I have a cognitive dissonance where it doesn't make any sense. So how can I see it from their perspective and make it make sense? And then you can deal with it like logistically.
Yeah. Yeah. Courtney,
In
with
my
the
opinion, none of it has to make sense, but
exactly.
Right.
Good one. Courtney with a C, do you have anything to add?
I'm struggling to even find a specific religion that I felt any bias around. But it's more like a generalized any religion that practices like restriction, control, and that's like fear based, kind of like what you said, Gabby. Like I grew up with like Christianity pushed on me very heavily to the point where had to like completely disassociate from it. And I remember being like a young child and coming home from church and they were talking about, I don't know, I was trying to look it up too. It was like Isaac and Abraham, like God telling someone to kill his son to prove his trust for him. And I remember coming home like maybe 7 years old and asking my stepdad, like, if God told you to kill me, would you do that? And he was just like, yes. Like, I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, it was a lot. And so, I mean, that's like a core memory. And just being like, this is not okay. Like, and kind of just recognizing that there is restriction and there is control and that it is fear-based, you know. And but that's not just the one religion, you know. A lot of them have aspects of that. They have, you know, they're supporting, like they can be supportive, they can be protective factors, but I think for me, I don't identify like doing my social identity wheel. I don't identify with any specific religion. And my response to even answering that is like, well, you know, I'm just open-minded to everything. Like there's so much that I don't know and could never figure out in just a lifetime for me to just pick something. So being super open-minded, and I think I could sit there with someone if they were just telling me this far-fetched story of what they truly believe. Just letting it be, like just letting it be what it is. And if they're, you know, if we're sitting there talking about food stamps and I just have to ask them about their religion really quick, I'm not gonna dive into that. Like, or I don't know. It depends on the context of the situation as to like what I would do, but I don't think that there's any, I don't know, people operate very like stuck in their own ways. And I think for all of us with our education, it's our brains are going to work a little bit differently. But even, you know, if I'm talking to my mom, my sister, my best friend, it's not that they lack the awareness, but they just haven't practiced it yet. So if you're sitting there with a client who's never done any self-reflection, you know, you can only get so far in one session. So I think just being really aware of the time you have with them and what the need is, I guess. That's my answer.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I think whenever you're dealing with somebody who's very religious, they're working through a filter,
Yeah.
and it just helps to understand that framework so that you can sort of relay anything through that, so you realize how it's going to be taken. Or I mean, and that's a hard thing to do without judging, but you kind of have to separate that on a cognitive level and just accept it for what it is.
Mhm. Those are really good answers, you guys.
Thanks, Corinne. Let me know if you can hear my son or whatever's going on in the back. I can mute myself.
As long as your highlight doesn't come on, there's nothing picked up.
Okay.
You're good.
So then,
So then
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so the next one is like one that I think we all still need some time to read, huh? Is that the vibe I was gathering?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't the wolf in the water? I think it's really asking us about what the stop. Is
Yeah,
that the one
it
that
was.
introduced that?
It was about stop. I remember now.
I think that
The one about what?
So the wolf in the water, like the STOP or whatever, introduced the stop. So like on how to calm yourself down in the moment.
Stop, take a breath, observe, proceed.
Yeah, I think that's what the question's kind of going at.
And I think honestly, we were really putting that stop or the idea into practice when we were talking about how to navigate strong emotions regarding like people potentially hurting other people or wanting to hurt other people or concepts and disorders such as bestiality. And there's going to be a lot of instances where clients are going to invoke a very strong emotion in us, whether that is coming from a place of our own bias from what we've learned growing up, being what our identity is met with somebody of a different identity and their experiences, or it could be and us having to process in real time through that experience, or it could be like, oh shit, like I really don't know how to move past this interaction with this heavy, super, very fearful, I don't know how to take this information of a child sacrifice right now, but let's like, how can I work through that? And I think that's what we already kind of started conceptualizing how we would put that into practice. So I think we were ahead of the curve and combined the two questions together.
Yeah, I think we're talking about that because it's all talking about reactivity and how you respond to someone because you have a cognitive dissonance right away because you want to react to this, but you're triggered. We have to be mindful that it's not going to solve anything because you don't understand the intricacies of your own biases and everything. So how can you not react, but respond in kind with what they're saying to better understand where they're coming from, no matter what it is.
Yeah. And hiding the visceral reaction from your face, if there is one.
Yeah.
Or in your body language, like shifting in your seat or, closing down your posture is like things that we have to be aware of when we're sitting. Granted, if it's like a telehealth thing, it's a little bit easier to hide our body language. But like when we're sitting in front of a client and like, we can tell when we've made somebody uncomfortable because they're kind of sitting, scooching in their seat, kind of starting to fidget, and being very aware of what our mind and body are doing at the same time, I think is going to be really important.
That's, the mindfulness aspect of it is just staying centered, not reacting.
Now that I know what this is.
Compartmentalizing.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Now that I know what that is, I did that with my husband so I wouldn't bury him in the backyard. Because I was able to, he said something to me before I had to do a presentation and I was like, are you kidding me? So I stopped. So yes, good job. Thank you for reminding us about that because I totally spaced it.
Yep. I think Courtney and Gabby, you guys both just nailed that, bringing it together. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, so yeah, what's the big difference between disassociating and the cognitive compartmentalization? I'm not very educated on it, but it's something that I have to work on in therapy when it comes to having, huge major life situations that I'm trying to navigate, but while also like being present with my kids or being able to do schoolwork. And at first it was like, just, save it to go like cry in the shower at the end of the day or take a bath and cry in the bath. So it's just like, let all the shit, but in my own like work of doing it, like, I don't know, I couldn't do it the way that she described it, but it's just like, I don't know, I can take something, like I envision it as just like having a jar and like having something super upsetting come to me in that moment, but like I'm with my kids and I don't want them to see me cry or get pissed off, or like they don't need to be at the end of that. So I'm able, not all the time, like it's a practice for sure, but able to put that away. And then, I get one day a week sometimes that their dad will have them, and I that day be just like complete, I don't know, just open the jar and let all of it come out. But I'm sure there's a much healthier way to do it, but that's how I would describe whatever that is.
If it keeps you sane, then it's helping.
I can't
Yeah.
say all that. I won't swear on it.
Yeah.
And what I hear you saying, and from what I've studied about mindfulness, is that you are not repressing emotion, but you are
Mhm.
acknowledging it and putting it in its place and saying, I see you, I feel you, but you have a spot and I have other things to do, right?
Yeah.
I'll take care of you, but you're not going to take all my attention.
Exactly. And I think that that's a major skill that
Mhm.
I guess we would
Definitely.
need.
Yeah, that's like a mindfulness Buddhist practitioner type.
We'll see. And this is kind of what I was wondering earlier whenever you guys were talking about, managing our reactions to stuff and our facial expressions and things. But are there instances where that's a disservice to our client, or maybe even Courtney, your kids? Like, are there instances where, like, given the context, that maybe it is something, I mean, obviously with children, it's a little bit different. Like, you don't want to put your adult burdens on your kids, but sometimes there's like learning instances that can be had. And I don't want to like rob our client of those, because maybe it is good to have a reaction if we know that that client can like, our client responds well to actually knowing how we feel. Like, maybe that client like told us this thing because they really actually wanted our genuine reaction. And if we don't give it to them, then they're not going to trust us anymore. So I wonder how many people that play that card too. And I know kids play that card. So I don't know. I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
I totally am with you on your method, because I've been taught that one before too. But I also wonder if there's a balance that could be had and where that exists.
Yeah, I think that's harder to incorporate, for me at least, to really acknowledge my emotions and express them honestly.
So for me, I think the biggest thing is following your gut, knowing your client. Like, and I think that all of us are very much intuitive and are very capable of doing that. Like, I don't know, for example, if there's, I don't know, on Valentine's Day, I don't remember if I had school that day or if I was just sick. My 6-year-old had a class party in his first grade class, and I missed it. And I remember like laying on the carpet, feeling like shit and being like, oh my God, I'm missing his party. Like, I don't know what to do. And he got off the bus and was crying. And he's like, this is the worst Valentine's Day ever. Like, it wasn't just because I wasn't there, but it was a big, like, parents came and he was like, where is my mom? That was a time where like, I was like, okay, like, and we both just cried together, like, and I felt so bad, but like that, I allowed him to see that emotion because he very much deserved to see it. But on the flip side, you know, I'm divorced to someone who's very abusive and will pick, you know, say certain things to pick at me. So if I'm getting like messages that, you know, naturally, like without any of my mental health work that I've done so far, I would have just completely engaged, gotten a ridiculous fight over either text message or telephone, and all my energy would have been put into that. But like in those moments where something is genuinely bothering me, but I just like, I have other stuff to do, that's when I would like utilize that skill and save it for later or whatever for context.
So you've got the balance in play.
I would not say I have it down, but like I can see myself, you know, practicing.
Well, it's kind of like, I think also cutting off and drawing out when you're in a counseling session and allowing that person to have the silence to see how far they want to give you information for. And maybe we use it in that sense. Maybe we're talking about something particular and they bring this up and you're able to put it aside and say, I heard you. Can we talk about it in a later date or another time? But also give them the understanding that we're going to come back to it so we don't lose it, so we can still have that transparency of building that relationship with somebody. Because I think that's the hard thing to do, is remember that people want to say, like Brian said, want to talk and we want to hear them. But when you give them the opportunity, but letting them know that you heard what they said. So maybe that's also another way of stopping and being able to say, okay, I heard exactly what you said, and I'm definitely going to write that down. Are you okay if we talk about this later? And have them own their own therapy session, you know? So that we don't lose, like Courtney with the case said, because you don't want to lose that trust that somebody has just throw up on your lap, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need that right now and put it over here. So yeah, I think it's that dance that we do in class or with them.
I'd say we're moving right along, guys. Everyone's really smart, and we're gonna kill it at this because look at how like intellectual our conversation has been so far. So if anyone was feeling weary, we're not even halfway through it, and I'd say this is a pretty strong conversation we're having right now, and we get to just like base everything in our warrior exam off this conversation, which is beautiful.
I think we need a sponsor. We need an
Put us on the
advertiser.
podcast.
Yeah.
Y'all
Okay,
wanna
I'm
move on
sorry
to
to
this?
keep you up. I will be right back. You can move forward. I just have to like I share my laundry room with like an entire apartment building, and it's timed, and I don't want anybody to get pissed off. I will be right back though.
Get it, girl. You don't want your clothes on the dryer. That's the
No, they will do that.
I know. It's like the worst. I'm like, oh my God, you just put my clean clothes on top of the dryer.
It's dusty. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Should we take a 5-minute break or something? Time it.
Too.
Oh,
I think we're gonna move through these last ones a little bit.
sure.
You can do that.
I say we're gonna move through them a little quicker, but we'll see. Yeah. If
Also,
you guys
I
wanna
will
take that.
say I'm a little far from a group member who I have to do a presentation with next class, so I may have to cut out at like 12:35. 12. It's 2 p.m.
Girl.
I was up till 5 a.m. doing a paper. My brain is not working today. I may have to cut out a little early if we're not like wrapped up yet, but I will try to stay on as long as I can.
Is that
All
the
right.
groups in your counseling?
Yeah.
You're gonna kill it. You're gonna kill it. Just relax. Take a breath. You know, I see
Yeah.
mine. You're good.
I'm
Good.
caffeinated. I had a prosciutto and cheese croissant this morning. It was delicious.
Ooh.
And you look fabulous. You're gonna be great.
I always just like the nerves of group facilitation. I'm like, oh my God, I'm sweating. Like,
Brian and I did ours last week.
Yeah, just reflect,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
breathe. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, you'll be
Yeah,
fine.
you'll be fine.
Totally.
you're too great.
You'll be
It's a new
totally
alert.
fine.
And find one person to look at and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just gonna stare. I'm gonna stare at someone. I don't know who, but I'm just gonna be like,
And then just go over the outline between you two. Like go over the outline like you're practicing.
oh yeah, I wrote a script because
Well, okay.
you know I am.
Don't be afraid to ad lib.
I definitely do.
You'll be fine.
Yeah. You're like so just naturally able to communicate. I mean, Brian and I don't want to say that we had a decent outline. There was definitely no script there. It was like, you should talk about this and I should talk about that and we should ping pong a little bit of this scenario. But other
Yeah.
than that, like, you can't really plan for the interactions that you're gonna have with these folks.
Yeah.
And the more organic it is and you're genuine, just you listened to them and then you responded, and then if there's any way of tying it to other group members or back to your concept, like you got it all day.
Thank you.
And silence.
I appreciate it, y'all, because I'm nervous.
I
When
was
is-
so nervous. I get
When
it.
is it? When's your
Next class.
co-facilitation? Tomorrow?
So, and I think we're up first.
Oh yay, I'll do the class with you.
We're gonna do it on anger management.
Yay. We need that after
Nice.
this. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you'll do great.
So the good news is we've already
Yeah,
went over
cool.
broaching.
I'll be in your group.
Is that what
Oh,
the
yeah?
next question is?
Yeah.
Oh. Wait, we're on number 4, right?
Number 4, yeah. Let's. Oh wait, whoops, sorry. What is the connection of language oppression and the experience of immigration in the United States? What themes exist for immigrants in the experience of human service professionals, and what specifically should we be aware of from the immigrant community?
I would say that intake forms or consent forms are typically in English. The structure or financial aspect are all on those forms as well. There are now forms that are becoming more available in Spanish, but we have so many other different languages spoken in the US. So, there's need for interpreters and also people who are multilingual, and also the shame or the stigma that the US as a culture has placed on people who don't speak English, and being aware of that. You're in America now, you must speak English. Like, why are you still speaking XYZ language? And holding space for that, especially, I mean, for people who are navigating language oppression, navigating potentially assimilation to a different culture and a different language. So yeah.
Yep. Language oppression.
Beautiful answer.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better.
Yep. Great job.
I mean, and not only just like forms, I think it's like really making sure that like if you're dealing with someone who's an immigrant, like making sure they really have adequate access to resources and whatever help that they can possibly have, and like not only so they can fill out all the forms and like do all of it, but like really make sure that they're supported in that process, because my God, it's a expensive one. It's hard, especially if somebody's going through it on their own.
Resources, resources, resources.
My computer's gonna die. Do we want to continue talking about this one, or would we like to move on, friends?
You can move on.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Gabby did a great job.
It's beautiful. We're all stealing Gabby's answer. And
Go, Gabby.
Kidding.
Do it. Take it verbatim. Be like, hang on, let me check my notes. Oh wait, it's close enough. No.
Yeah. It's,
It's on
as long as
transcript.
APA citation, Gabby,
100%.
2024.
And so the next one is, what is broaching? And how and when would you use this technique? What challenges exist with broaching? Give an example of how this could look either how this could look either in your personal life or in human services. We've already answered that one, right?
I'm gonna take a break after this.
I feel like we touched on it a little bit with the first question and how we
Mhm.
reach across the table and making space for differences,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging if there are differences, what concerns
Yep.
have, and then as the human service professional, uh, digesting and sitting with their concerns and figuring out how we are going to navigate that on behalf of them, not how they are going to navigate it on behalf of us.
Exactly.
So, my group, I notice you're all women and I'm the only man. Does this in any way make you uncomfortable with working with me in this fashion?
Perfect.
No, we're doing great. Brian, excellent. Execution. That's the
Brian's
word.
going to own that one.
I don't know if I can use your words verbatim, but I'll try.
Just paraphrase would be all right.
Yeah.
A lot of times the underprivileged do not have access to healthcare, especially the class of poor, especially 5-10 years ago. And people immigrating, they are coming from a different cultural practice medically sometimes. Definitely poverty has a great role in impacting the social determinants of health. Working with somebody in this extent would be, I guess, advocating for them and any opportunities that they can have to get health care, get seen by a doctor.
Yeah, helping them have access to those services is huge. I know a lot of my low income friends had to like teach them about Medicaid. I was like, why don't you sign up for this? You don't
Oh,
make
yeah.
any money, you get healthcare.
Yeah.
Damn it. I had one friend who like signed up for it like a year ago and he was like, I don't think I have it anymore. And it was like 8 months. No, it might have been like over a year. And I was like, dude, come on, just please like sign in, like look, just see you have healthcare. Like this has been stressing you out. You need to get your eyes checked. Like do it. And he goes and he logs and he's like, oh man, my healthcare has been active this whole time. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, go use it. Like, sheesh. And like,
Really,
I mean, obviously you can't talk like that with your client. This is my friend, but there's like definitely ways that we can be that kind of support for people.
yeah. I have friends that one friend had cancer and she didn't have health care. I said, well, what about Obamacare? And she said, Obama? I'd rather die. And I said, what? Like,
But
okay.
many of our clients will be like that. Like,
I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah, what do you do? How do you? I care about you, but how can you
There's some
overcome?
personal virtues and values that people are going to hold that might like interfere with their ability to get well. And
Right.
it's also something you can't be like, well, you're wrong.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. How do you
yeah,
do
how do
that?
you help them naturally get to the place where they see how their own ideas about something are impeding their ability to live a fuller, more fulfilling life? Very tricky shit right there.
Yeah, like the self harm that they're doing. It's just like cutting themselves, but even worse.
A lot of people aren't perceptive to that when they're in it.
I had an ex girlfriend that was a Christian Science nurse, and she got out of that, but she said she would just basically bandage people until they died, and somebody else would pray for them. They get paid a lot of money, and I'm like, whoa, how do you even do that? It kind of drove her out of it, but some people have that religious uh, belief that they don't want to be treated.
Yeah.
I think it's the same
And
with like
that's their choice.
I don't know if you guys grew up in this or like if you have family members like this, but like my grandpa, my dad, oh, it was a rub some dirt in it type of family. Like they weren't going to the doctor for anything. I'm healthy. I don't need to take my blood pressure medication. I'm fine. Heart attacks are not anything that I will ever be subjected to. I'm totally fine. I don't need to watch my health. And like, I think the kind of masculine culture that sometimes says that, asking for help uh, or going and seeing something, admitting that you have illness can be seen as a weakness. So people don't want to go to the doctor, admit they're getting old, or admit there's certain parts of their body that don't work like they used to, or that they're just going to suck it up and rub some dirt in it because everything's fine. And in reality, it's not fine. And it also comes into like health, but mental health as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, everything's great. Like, I'm not depressed. It's fine.
Yeah.
A lot of cultures have different ideas as far as you don't go see a psychiatrist. You don't tell the family business to somebody that you don't know.
Yep.
Like my roommate is black, and she told me this, and her mom was very intelligent, but didn't trust psychologists. And sometimes it's a cultural thing that you're brought up with.
I would say too, it's very often a cultural thing, and I like the example that you gave, Gabby, and it made me think of my ex's family. Their immigration status prevented them from being able to be on any kind of medical plan. So if you're going to the dentist for whatever, a checkup or a cavity, you're paying like full price out of pocket. So his family didn't really ever do that growing up. So like that's dental health, that's something, but it definitely impacts even the way that like if my kids are going, they're not getting their teeth brushed.
Mm-hmm.
So like it trickles down eventually. Definitely intersections of identities. It's highlighted here.
Yeah, what is a good intersection of identity?
I'd say the one that it was like it's ethnicity, social class, I don't know, immigration, that's what national origin. I mean, I'll be right back.
A black female lesbian immigrant from Ghana.
Right.
Transvestite with physical disabilities, or a person that identifies as male. Sorry. Transsexual. What is the proper word I'm looking for?
Transgender.
Transgender.
You were talking about your podcast earlier, Brian, and because I didn't know what intersex was while we were reading in our articles, I Googled it. And now I follow a lady, her name is Bloom, and she's intersex. And I learned so much, and my mind is blowing because I'm from Carbondale, Colorado in the backwoods. I didn't know any of this stuff. And so it has opened my eyes, and she is amazing. And to know that their parents did not choose what sex they were going to be when they were born and did not let the doctor do that was amazing. So yeah, I because of this particular question, I was like, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
The question that I would ask is the person who identifies as low income and has a diagnosis of being obese. And that one is for me because of a class that we took, I think it was last summer, I don't know when it was, but it was the food desert question on how, we live in a small community and you don't get a lot of fruits and vegetables. And if you do want to eat healthy, you can't afford it. And then the obese part is, oh, they're just lazy, or, oh, they don't have any willpower. No, that's not the truth. They have other situations that are happening, and you can't just assume that somebody is obese and overweight because they're lazy. I think I'm going to go with that one. What do you guys think?
I think that you and I reference the same video because they say that like obesity, when we're talking about like it as a diagnosis, I also think like but in that video they said that obesity is not like a motivation issue, it's a class issue. However,
right,
I think we also have to keep in mind of like what some doctors consider obese and the BMI categorization, which may not be completely accurate. And somebody who can still have I'm not going to say healthy because healthy is kind of like a interesting term. But like a very amazing, active, happy life, no matter their size.
Yep.
But we have a way of, the BMI categorization, like based on my BMI, I would be considered obese by like most doctors that I see.
Yep.
And like, that's, it's may not be entirely accurate. But also, yeah, to your point, like we as a society gatekeep healthy food. Grocery costs are only going up.
Yeah.
That we don't have community gardens. That's, there are some states that are outlawing feeding the homeless and making it a citable offense. So there's a lot of intersection that comes from, or just having like a safe place to go out and take a walk. Do you have access to a sidewalk or a park?
Right.
Is there funding from your city being put into that? Do you live in a rural community where that's not available to you?
Right.
I think the racism behind this is like so insidious because it's like, yeah, they're not obese or they shouldn't be obese because ideally they should be put, in these ghettos and starved and made to be so thin that you could just burn them. And it's like, just because you don't have money, you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to be a human being. You're not allowed to exist. That's crazy.
It's almost gone in an opposite direction nowadays with just the quality of our food, right? It's like, you get more for your money in the theoretical sense with some of this stuff that has a lot of bad shit in it for us. And like, unfortunately, typically with impoverished people, there comes a lower education, and like a lot of times they don't know. I know, like, I'm from Oklahoma. Like, my mom was literally feeding me donuts for breakfast, and like she would bake me cookies in the morning because she was like, oh, Well, it has eggs, it has sugar, it has flour, and like I'm giving you
Mhm.
milk. So like I'm hitting all these food groups. And my stepdad married her when I was like 4, and he was like, "You're gonna kill this child." He was like, "Oh my God. Like you can't feed her like this. Like she needs to eat a vegetable every day." And I was like, "What? Who
Yep.
is this guy? I hate him." I was like, "Bring back the cookies for breakfast." And that's another thing, right? There's like an addict side of this whole like the unhealthy side with the food. My God, it's like really shitty because like you get hooked on this shit that's not good for you. And I know like when I was just in Texas all weekend, my boyfriend was laughing at me last night. He was like, "You're gonna explode and it's just gonna be all barbecue." Because that's all I ate all the time I was there. I was like, yeah, you know, I mean, there's when you're in certain environments, like you have access to, you know, lots of fast food and um it's just a lifestyle that definitely doesn't help people.
Right. And we
But
also,
again,
uh-huh.
it's like saying these people are poor. How come they're not starving to death? What's going on? What's wrong? I mean, give me a
Yeah.
break. You know, just because they're poor, they should be skinny and like that's sad.
Well,
It's
and
also,
then like the dollar menu, like when McDonald's still had the dollar menu, same with like Subway and it's $5 foot long. Now it's $6 for 6 inches. Anyway, craziness.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
But like when things used to be on the dollar menu or Little Caesars pizza used to be $5 for a whole pizza and you could feed your family, like it was a lot of food, but it was quantity over quality.
Yeah.
And then in these food deserts where you don't have a grocery store, but you have high prevalence of fast food, and then you have liquor stores on top of it.
mhm.
So then you have alcoholism on top of it, and the two combined together, like alcohol, sugar. So you are drinking, you also have a desire for more sugar or sugary drinks, especially if you're trying to quit alcohol. And then you also have, you know, you don't have access or can't afford healthy food. So you have to put food on the table, feed yourself, feed your family. And the, you know, easiest thing to get is Little Caesars or McDonald's or Subway or something that is like or donuts and cookies for breakfast. Like it's, you know, like whatever helps satiate the hunger that you're feeling
Yep.
to keep you alive.
That, and right now you need 2 people to survive in the valley raising children, working. And who has time to make a nutritious dinner when you're pulling out frozen foods because you can't, because you're going to your next job, or you know you've got latchkey children because mom is working and they're going to show up and they're not going to eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you might have made them for after school snack. They're going to break it up in the chips and the soda pops or whatever else they can find when mom's going to say no, you know? So yeah, it's a big deal with the whole obese thing and the low income. All right. Anything
Last but not
else?
least,
Number 8.
Number 8.
I'll be right back,
define
guys. I have to let the
bias.
dog out before I depart this property, so I will be right back.
Okay.
I'll just read it. Where does bias come from? How could it impact our work in helping professions? What is the work of a culturally competent counselor in regards to bias? Name one of your biases in regards to identity. See the social identity wheel that you've worked with this semester. So where does bias come from? How could it impact our work helping professionals?
It comes from cultural stereotypes that we grow up with.
What we've been learned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say that in like media portrayals.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder how much of what we learned is just media portrayals that our family and their around them learned.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's just the culture around us that we grow up in teaches us our biases just by absorbing others' biases that are expressed. Parents and family and community, as well as entertainment.
And we had a really good conversation about how we could impact our work in helping professions. So we had that conversation about making sure that we hold our biases our own and learning how not to show it on our faces.
Yeah,
We did.
just kind of owning that,
Mhm.
acknowledging it, and putting it in its
Mhm.
place, not reacting from it.
Mhm. It's not about us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that'd be like self-disclosure.
Right.
Which we're in danger of doing if we don't acknowledge our bias and work through it, or even acknowledge it and compartmentalize it.
So one of the questions in our warrior exam prep, what are you excited about? Getting done with an A. No.
Summer.
Yeah, does it mean in regards to this class?
Right. It says what aspects of it feel challenging? Oh, the warrior exam. Oh,
How are you
no.
feeling
What
about
are
the
you
warrior
excited
exam?
about? Mhm.
What aspects of it feel challenging to you, and what are you excited about? Okay.
Mhm.
I'm
I
excited
mean-
that we all get to work together.
Yeah,
We got a really good, great group.
no
Yeah,
joke.
I've worked with both Courtneys on stuff, and basically we're the trifecta, and then you all
We're just
you're
hanging
all
on for the show.
you're the bouncers. You just like
Oh, you know, I
regulate.
just realized we never heard anything from Angela, huh?
No.
No,
I was looking at the groups, which is
Angelica?
odd that what's his name? Johan put her with us because the group that's going like group 4 right after us for the warrior exam like has 5 people. So I don't know if he was trying to do it for like an even number.
So what we could do is we could just share
this video.
our video and I'll explain that we shared it. We realized that they weren't in the thing. I'll say that. It's all good.
Yeah.
Are there
That way
any
she's
questions?
included.
Are there any questions on the study guide you'd like to collaboratively review?
The study
That
guide.
was the study guide, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
we weren't.
I think we just collaboratively reviewed them all.
All of
Those
them.
are awesome.
Unless it's wanting to collaborate with him.
Oh,
Oh, hold
Ah,
on, let me read that. Let me read it. I'm gonna read it. Are there any questions on the study guide you'd like to collaboratively review? I feel like he means in our group right now.
Okay, so no, I think we're good.
I'd say, I mean, you
Read
could just
that.
say we preemptively, being the overachievers that we are, just went ahead and went through them all because why not? Just kidding.
So I wanted to get that out before Gabby had to bolt.
Thanks for
And I'll
taking those
add more
notes,
stuff.
Pauline.
Yeah, I'll
Yes.
add more to it, make
Yes,
it really
thank you,
nice.
Thank you.
You bet. Do we want to finish off number 8?
what?
Yeah, Gabby, I know you were stepped away. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Oh, Gabby. Name one of your biases in regards to identity.
Ooh, recently? Let's see. Actually, I just encountered this. I was in Washington, D.C. last week or so ago, and my friend and I were staying at this hotel that was relatively inexpensive because, you know, we're traveling on a budget. And I mentioned to a lot of people where we were staying, and they were like, "Oh, that's a really bad part of town. Like, I don't know if you really want to stay there. I think you should like stay somewhere like closer to the city." And I was like, "Okay, like this is weird." And I quickly realized it was because of it, there was a lack of white people, and which is the reason that why people were saying that it was a bad side of town.
Holy cow.
And my friend and I were taking the metro everywhere, and we were I was the only white person on the bus. And so it made me think of like how my family has classified what's a bad neighborhood and what's a good neighborhood and what I was taught growing up. And it really, really made me look at what I had learned growing up. Not that I still hold that same belief now, but I was definitely met with like, oh, my other friends who are white are telling me that this is not a good neighborhood. Why is that? And it was because there was more people of color. And I was like, this is really, really interesting. And also, why is it deemed a bad part of town just because you don't feel comfortable because your whiteness isn't validated? So it was really interesting, and I got to have a conversation with my friend about it, and it was just like, it like hit me pretty hard in the face, and I was like, wow, I really need to analyze what I've learned from people, just from like subliminal messaging, and also recognize that you know, how privilege shows up in transportation and how accessible it is to get certain places. And you know, so I would say biases is that sometimes I'm very anxious about my white identity because I'm very worried or nervous because I don't want to ever offend people. And then I realized that people, like, everybody really just wants to mind their own business and have a community and be in a place that is loved and where they feel safe. So, sorry, there was a lot to unpack there, but I just a little scatterbrained, but we made it.
I was wondering, like, I was curious if anyone, like, since starting this class has had experience, like, realization, epiphany experiences, like, oh shit, like, that was a good example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my concluding thoughts is like, I grew up in Seattle or Bellevue, Seattle area where like I never was intimidated by people who were different than me. I loved being able to interact with different communities and cultures. And then in college, I learned about like all of the oppression history and the possessive investment of whiteness and all this. And I was like, oh my God, I offend people with my presence. My
Me too.
Is
Me
offensive.
too.
And I shut down I shut down broaching because I was so worried that I was going to offend somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then I moved to Steamboat, where majority of the people here look like me. And so I hadn't sought out to interact with other people that were different than I was. And I went to DC and I started talking to every single person that I feasibly could. Any interaction that I could have with anybody, I was like, yo, what's up? Like, how you doing? How's your day going? And it just like, I dropped the anxiety. I was like, they're literally, if you're coming from a place of love and respect, you'll be fine. And if you fuck up, you make a mistake, own it, apologize for it, and learn from it.
Great example, Gabby. Way to end it up for us. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
I feel like I've been caught in like the ocean tidal wave, just being like, and here's another bias, and learn this one. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
No, I like it, and I have to. I mean, I live in like low income housing in Denver, so it's like essentially just a little melting pot of a community. Like there are parts of it that are great, and then other parts not so much. Like last week, I sent an email to my leasing office, like, "Hey, just want to let you know, a little kid found a needle on the ground and was poking a tree with it, but it was like a needle for like shooting up. And there's a bunch of caps around." So like that's, you know, not so great, but I appreciate like the culture here. My kids are half Hispanic, but they're very white. And so I remember my son coming home a couple weeks like or a month ago being like, I made a new friend, and he's, I don't know, he didn't say black. Oh, he said brown. So he didn't say black. I struggle in like teaching him, you know, he's learned the N word and will like, he doesn't understand it yet. And I'm trying to find an age appropriate way to be like, don't do that. Because his new friend at school happens to live like next door with like a big family. And just the way that the children interact is very different. But I did have a moment the other day when I have a tall neighbor with a pit bull, and he's black. And ever since this little puppy, ever since last summer, it was a puppy, but now she's really big. You can hear him like, it's not like yelling at the dog, but it's just like a loud, very stern voice. Like me, I grew up in a house where there was a lot of fighting. So when I hear yelling, it like freaks me out. But there was a moment where like our dogs came up to each other. His got a little like hyper and he like yelled at her. And I sat there, and in that I was like, this is how he talks. Like this is what he knows. And I sat there, it didn't bother me, like, because I had to just remind myself, like, culture, like this is just different culture, just accept it. And then once like he stood up and he was like, thank you for standing there while I got her calm. And I was like, because I can imagine most people being like, oh my God, like this is crazy, and walking away. Like it's the type of like loud, stern voice. People are fighting outside and people look out their windows. But to just stand there and be like, this is okay. Like this is their normal. It might be different from yours. Like, and then to be thanked after, that was like the only time I haven't been like, oh my God, I'm so white. Like I have my own, like I have biases against my own identities, and that I would say is more challenging than others. But
Courtney, I'm really glad you said that, because I think you just gave a name to what I've been feeling for so long.
beautiful.
Like I have biases against my own identity, and
Yes.
that's what makes me shut down.
Yeah.
Good job.
This family was moving in, and like my windows are open, and I have a bed frame that I had gotten from like someone who wasn't in my family. But like if it was me living here, I would not have a bed frame. Like I would not be able to afford that. Like looking in my room, I was like, oh my God, I'm so white. My blankets have flowers on them and I have a bed frame. Like I don't even know, but I just got freaked out. Like I totally understand what you mean though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's important not to feel shameful, but to be inspired to reach across those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you become part of the resistance, and how do you dismantle the system that brought us all here and kept us separate? How do we use our privilege to dismantle that systemic engine that's working without us?
I really like what I read earlier. It was like a lifelong commitment. Like I might have been able to recognize culture in a 3-second instance of someone whatever, training their dog, but like, what does that do? So I feel like that lifelong commitment of just continuing and being cognizant or whatever the word is.
Good job, you guys. Gabby, go get an A.
I'm going to be reaching for it. So I appreciate you guys. This was such a lovely conversation. And do I have any? Are y'all in my next class? Sometimes I forget.
Are you in
Might
groups?
be.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
in every class. I
Yeah,
have.
we're all together throughout the ages today, right?
Not Brian and I, but I think the rest of you.
Gotcha. All right. Well, for everybody, I will
Yeah.
see you when I see you.
6:30.
6:30. There we go. All right. I'll see you guys later.
Bye,
Bye.
girls.
All right, Courtney left too. See ya.